Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. I'm Mike Kenichi and I'm really excited tonight because tonight is a celebration. It's also a tribute to a man who went through so many hardships over the last 4 years, but through it all, he never lost his will to live. He's an inspiration to everybody and he's going to tell us all about his story. It is my honor to introduce tonight's guests, Mike Serke and his wife Megan. And Mike, Megan, thank you both for coming on today. It's a real honor for me.
Thanks for having us here today, Mike.
So, I think people need to get a little background on the both of you. So the first thing I would say is, it's always cool to ask this. How did you two first meet each other?
So probably around middle school, I think Megan moved into town I was living in Monroe, and we knew each other from school and classes and kind of became friends in middle school.
Right.
Through on to high school in the same group of friends, and then went to the same college together as well.
Oh, wow.
So we were always kind of friends
and
in
now,
the same group.
Did you two date in high school? Or
Not at all. Didn't date till after college.
It's always interesting. That happens a lot to couples where they know each other forever, and then as they get to be adults, that's when it kind of happens. So, it's always a cool story. But talk to me a little bit, Mike, because you grew up in Monroe, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So,
grew up in Monroe my whole life.
Great town, and obviously I know your children love sports. Were you a big sports guy when you were a kid?
Growing up, I did Little League for many years. I dabbled in football a couple of years for middle school, I think it was, and didn't do it. Did a little bit of running in high school, and then just some extracurricular volleyball activities outside of school.
Right. And now, did you go to Massac High School? Or?
Yes, went to Massac High School.
Very good high school. So many people I know that came out of that school. So, it was really neat for you to grow up in the town of Monroe. And to this day, you're still kind of right close to Monroe.
Right.
So, you haven't really ever left your roots, which is pretty cool as well.
Right. Always kind of been there. We had a small stint in Seymour for a little bit when we first got married.
Right.
Back to the area.
So let me ask you, you both said you went to the same college as well. What college did you attend?
Into Western Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
State University.
Yeah, which is,
close by in Danbury.
Right.
It's nice.
And Mike, we're going to get to your story and we're going to talk about your children and how they leaned on each other as siblings. But did you have siblings yourself growing up as well?
Growing up, I had two sisters and then two step siblings who became very close with, who, were part of the family as a young age. So.
Right. So Megan, let me ask you this. It's got to be a cool story. Take us back to the night Mike proposed. Were you shocked? Were you stunned? It had to be a cool story.
I was shocked, and we just always got along, and so I wasn't expecting the proposal, if that makes sense. I feel like, a lot of, girls when they're young, they're like, oh, a ring, and it just didn't even cross my mind. But I remember the setting. I don't know what he said because he took me to the Meriden Daffodil Festival in Meriden and proposed during the fireworks. So
wow.
He asked me to turn around, and he was down on one knee, and I saw his lips moving but couldn't hear anything because the fireworks were going off. But it was really special and memorable.
I'm sure that moment when you saw that, just had to overwhelm you in a good way, but definitely you had that feeling in your heart that you get in the nerves and stuff like that, correct?
I did. I just couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting it. He did a good job of hiding it. Every time we drive by, because it's one of my towns I work in, and we've brought the kids there for the festival, and so we get pictures with them with the daffodils, and we kind of have some of us when we won, and it was a great night.
Good memory.
Right. So Mike, you get to college. What was did you have a major you had thought of when you got out of high school, or did it take you some time to decide what you wanted to do?
I kind of planned in high school. I was thinking I would either do some sort of engineering or computer work, and I ended up studying management information systems and ended up with a degree in that.
Right. So I could ask you both this question, and you could both answer it. like anything else, when your first daughter, your first child too, Madison was born, I mean, what was that feeling like? Because they always say, you know, when it's your first, like you never forget that moment, what that was like. So just take me back a little bit, how special that was.
So yeah, it was a very good moment. Like just you can't forget being there in the hospital, seeing your first child, and just the next few days leading up to it, or you know after that. It's kind of gathering your thoughts, your feelings, and putting it together. You know, one side of your mind is saying, oh, what do we do now? Meanwhile, the next, you know, the other side of your mind is already ahead of the game. Just,
Right.
you know, you're already doing what you need to do as a parent.
Right, exactly. So, Mike, let me ask you, when COVID first, I think it was like March of 2020 when they kind of shut everything down. But we had kind of heard about it in January, I believe, and we didn't really know what to expect. When it first had hit early on, I mean, did you both have like an understanding of like, you know, staying home, things like that? I mean, were there any problems at that time before, like, you know, what obviously would happen?
During that time when things were first coming out, didn't really have much experience with it. Besides, you know, it was ramped up really quickly, and I had a little bit of advance notice just in the work environment I was in. Do a lot of overseas work and had a lot of feedback from the people and employees over there on what was coming our way, and you know, it just kind of happened real quick from there. And then it was, you know, everything shut down,
Yeah.
work from home, and let's see what we can do from here.
And Megan, let me ask you, you had a child in kindergarten at the time, and that's not easy. And to this day, I don't know, I give that group of kids so much credit because their whole life changed. They're in their first year of school. It gets interfered by COVID. And then the following year, while they went back to school, there were times where they were out of school again for like 6 to 8 weeks. So how hard was that for both of you as parents? Because it's not easy to keep a child who's 6 years old, their attention span, focused on a computer like that. So how difficult was that?
Yeah, it was, you know, Maddie had Mrs. Cologne, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it was just all new for all of us. You know, looking back on it, it wasn't great for the social skills maybe amongst that group of kids, but, you know, they didn't really know much different. You know, they were in school for a few months. She did go to preschool and daycare and stuff, so she was used to that setting. But it was chaos. It really was. I was trying to work from home. He was trying to work from home. We were trying to do the distance learning. You know, we had
2 little kids as well.
the other 2 running around.
Yeah.
The dogs barking in the background.
And I'm sure at times for both of you, it had to be depressing because, granted, you're home with your family. You're not having to travel or fight through the traffic and stuff. But it just felt like there was no world going on right now. Like, pretty much we were all in a bubble. And, you know, people obviously went to the grocery store. People walked and jogged, whatever, to kind of like occupy their time. But it just felt like, you know, this was going to go on forever. And for me, anyway, it was very depressing.
Right. It was, you kind of only got out there and did the bare minimum that you needed to do. Like you
Even
said,
then,
grocery store shop.
it was nerve-wracking. You know, I remember wearing a mask, and I remember, like, in the beginning, we would bring the groceries home and wipe them down with Lysol wipes before putting them in the fridge, and it was just
Crazy times.
yeah, it was.
Yeah. And let me ask you, Megan, obviously Cora's first year of kindergarten, things kind of got back to normal somewhat. The kids still had to wear masks, but everybody was back in school. And I mean, for both of you, but especially like, you know, like a mother, she has to get their kids ready and all that stuff all the time. It had to be at least one burden taken off your shoulders that there was no more distance learning, because I don't think that would have been good for Cora or anybody in kindergarten at the time to have to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a teacher for a reason. I didn't go into that profession for a reason. And, you know, all the teachers at the conferences say they're good in school, they listen, they, you know, pay attention, and not at home. Not at all at home.
They're more comfortable at home.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it was definitely, it was definitely hard, and it was hard to see. It was hard physically and mentally, but it was hard to watch them not getting the amount of learning that they needed and that they would have gotten in school. You know, just everything that they would have gotten, social, just everything. It was hard to see that.
Right. So Mike, you know, it always, I don't want to say it makes me laugh, but it really, you know, makes me scratch my head when so many people would be like, oh, if you're young, you don't have anything to worry about. You can't get, even if you get this, you'll be okay. You know, I don't think anybody really had a good idea what this virus would do to people. But I think it was December of 2021. I mean, correct. Everything was fine. And then you contracted COVID. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of your family members had gotten it not too long before you did. So, I mean, they recovered okay. When did you first notice that something just wasn't right when you got this? Like, was it the first day or did it take a couple days?
First day, it was the beginning of December. We were feeling fine. So, well, to cycle back, I think some of our family members in the past have gotten it, you know, parents, other relatives, and other people. So we kind of knew of some symptoms, but like you said, a lot of the stories were, unfortunately, a lot of people passed away, got really sick, but the majority of people who got it ended up with some symptoms and kind of went away. Again, you never know what you're going to get when you get any sickness, right, or what shows up. But, you know, at that time, beginning of December, I was perfectly healthy, had no other underlying issues. Contracted COVID, didn't even know I had it. At the time, you had to go test to go see concerts and things. So right. Megan and I went to go get tested to go see a concert that weekend and found out that we weren't going to be able to go because we didn't have a clear card because we both came back having COVID.
Right.
And
not knowing.
We had no symptoms, didn't know it at all prior to that. And it was probably close to a week from there before I noticed any symptoms or anything. And then I think it was last couple of days, I was just, you know, my first symptom was I noticed I was a little tired, and that was it. And then, you know, the tired turned into struggling more to breathe. It's something that came onto me over time, maybe over a couple of days, so I didn't notice it, but Megan more so noticed it at the time.
Right. And Megan, what was the first red flag to you that something wasn't right? I mean, did he just seem like he was overly tired? I mean, what would you say, like, concerned you?
I would say the first red flag is he started, it sounds odd, but he started kind of like grunting.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not normal. You know, and then once a day went by and he didn't want to eat, I was like, okay, because he really didn't have any other symptoms, no stuffy nose, no coughing, right. Like, so it was definitely more internal, I think, than it was external.
And Mike, obviously, like, you were having difficulty breathing. I mean, was there one day where, like, you and Megan both said, we got to go to the hospital? I mean, like, were you having trouble, like, catching your breath each time? Or
so there was a Thursday night. I called my primary care doctor who, you know, answered the phone, and we talked over a couple things. And they said, oh, you know, just kind of monitor things, see how things are going. We'll schedule you for a visit in the morning. Come see us. And, you know, if you have any other issues prior to that, obviously, you know, call the ambulance or go to the ER or whatever else if something creeps up overnight.
Right.
And then, you know, happened to be that overnight
where it just got worse.
That was.
It got worse, and he was up in the bathroom, and of course I'm a light sleeper, so we went in there and I took his oxygen, and it was 80. Ugh. So then I called the ambulance.
That's when we knew it was
right.
It was time to get some outside help.
And I mean, let me ask you, they obviously admitted you, I mean, was there a part of you that was scared yet, or you just didn't really know what was going on, you know, how serious it would end up being? I mean, because I got to believe, too, when you're going through this, you're struggling to breathe, you're struggling, you know, to just do anything, even, like, eat. There's got to be a part of you, though, too, that has that worry in the back of your mind. I mean, were you concerned right away, or not until, like, it obviously got worse?
At the time, I was riding in the ambulance, talking to the medics that were in there with me. After they put me on some oxygen, while I was there, I started to feel a little better. Before I left the house, I took my phone with me, my phone charged cable, so I know how long I was going to be there if I need to charge my phone or use it so I can contact family or whatever else, be in touch with Megan while I was there. So they wouldn't take anybody else with me because I had COVID, and Megan was home with the kids who were still sleeping that morning at the time before school. I kind of thought maybe, it'd be a quick trip. At the time they had different medicines out, give me a medicine, send me home on the way. The folks in the ambulance also said, you seem to be fairly okay. You're not having all these other symptoms. They'll probably just give you some medicine, send you home today, and, hopefully you get better.
Right. And Megan, let me ask you this. Did the doctors have any idea when he was there for, say, like the first couple of days, like that? Did they think he was getting worse, or they just didn't know?
He was getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had him first on just a nasal cannula, and then they had the mask with the bag, and then they had a high flow, and then they had multiple over days. But I think, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think the primary way, from what I understand, that they monitored, in addition to oxygen and blood oxygen and everything, was the x-rays. And you can see every day when they would take an x-ray, it just getting progressively worse.
And the crazy thing about it is, in December of 21, we had been told we were pretty much back to normal. Mm-hmm. Obviously, March of 20, it seemed like every day somebody was passing away from this awful virus. Then even in the fall of 20, it was still bad, even the spring. And then by like the summer, they had felt like we turned the corner. Yeah. Things were back to normal. Right. So it just goes to show that this thing was not ever eradicated. Like, it was still there, and it didn't matter if it was 2020, 2021. Like, this was something that wasn't going away, and it affects some people in different ways. And obviously, it affected you in a big way. Let me ask you, did you have any type of opinion about what this virus was like before you had contracted it? Did you think we were on the mend, or did you have concerns?
I thought we were getting to a point where we were on the mend, like you said. People had started to return to work at depending on how your work was, at a schedule of a couple days a week, or people every day. It was just, things seemed to be getting back to a more of a normal lifetime. People were going out and doing things that they, put on hold for a year and a half, or whatever it was. And
right. And I think about this too. You had to go through this, and especially in the early stages of this. And it's one thing, like, the COVID affects your body, and it's affecting both of you. You're at the hospital and stuff. But you also have 3 kids that you still have to think about, and you're trying to make sure they're not being neglected. And yet, you both have jobs, and you got to think about, okay, well, I'm going to have to miss. Obviously, you were missing work, but you also had to miss a lot of work as well, Meg, because you had to go to the hospital in and out and stuff like that. So, just the whole thing was, just so awful in every stretch of the, word. But let me ask you this. How tough was it for you, Megan, trying to reassure your children that he was going to be okay? Because I'm sure you had a second grader, a kindergartner, and a pre-K kid. Mm-hmm. How do you even try to rationalize this to them?
So I couldn't even see him. I couldn't even visit because of the COVID restrictions. So I actually didn't see him for the first over 2 months that he was in the hospital. Yeah. But yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible because the thing is, the one of them was sick, so they had to quarantine for 14 days because that was the rule for school.
Yeah.
And then the other one got it, so they had to quarantine. So it ended up being over a month because they all got it. We all got it. It ended up being over a month that they were home, that I was trying to, as you said, deal with my work and deal with the doctors and Mike and all the distance learning and trying to get them to do homework. And, I was trying to distract him. Unfortunately, this ran into Christmas, and he wasn't here, obviously, for Christmas. So it was just, I just remember only opening a couple presents because they wanted to wait for Dad.
Yeah.
So we put some aside, and, it was just, I can't explain. I don't even know. It was.
And let me ask you this. I would have to believe Cora and Owen were still too young to really grasp this, but I feel like Madison was at an age where she is still young, but she kind of has an idea that this isn't good. How difficult was it for Madison out of all the children?
Yeah, I think it was hardest for her because, as you said, she knew what was going on and understood why Dad left and, what was going on. Mike would call for the first week that he was able and speak to the kids, and they saw him with the mask, and I just
hospital bed.
Yeah, and I just I tried to be honest, but especially in the beginning because we didn't know what it would progress into. But she definitely understood, and Cora is our love bug, always there if something's wrong. So she was there, when I'd be crying on the couch, but didn't quite understand. And Owen, I just remember him saying, when Dad gets home, when Dad gets home.
Because I would imagine
yes.
Owen was only 2, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 3 at the most.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
7?
Yeah, he was
5
just
and 3?
over 3 years old.
Right. And
8, 6, and
the
4.
thing is, too, Megan, is when you have 3 kids that young, kids never mean to do this. They're just kids. But they're gonna get cranky. And they're going to fight with each other sometimes. And you have to be able to be home with them, and you're dealing with this, and then, you have to meet their needs. And again, they want your undivided attention all the time. So, how were you able to just, there had to be days where, like, all you did was cry, I'm sure.
Yeah, they did. I have a picture of me on the couch with all 3 of them sitting literally on top of me. And, I love that they're there and healthy. And even though we were dealing with Mike, but I had moments where I was just like, can I just be, because I couldn't, there was nowhere to go. You couldn't get out and drive in a car, but we pulled through.
And how difficult though, like, was it for both of you not to be able to see her because she wasn't allowed in the hospital? And then your doctors are telling you he's not good, and you want to see him, and you just weren't allowed to. How difficult was that?
It was horrible. He went not being able to breathe, and with this virus that everyone has heard about, but it was our first time experiencing it. And, the fact that I couldn't be there to be with him, to see him, to touch him, to be his advocate, to make sure those doctors were on top of everything. I was doing it the best I could at home, looking at his my chart and double checking everything. And it was horrible. It was a disaster. It was horrible.
And let me ask you, Mike, having to be in the hospital like that, and like anything else, when you're just stuck in a bed and you're having all these problems and you're not feeling good, the days just seem to go longer and longer. How was there ever a point when you were in there and you're going through all this where you're just like, it's not worth it for me to fight? I don't think you have that attitude, but it had to be hard sometimes for you to just, because you're so uncomfortable, you're not feeling well. There had to be times where, like, you were so frustrated.
That's a good question. Right? A lot of people, you never want to be in the situation. I got to the hospital, you're laying in the bed, you got oxygen on, IV or 2 or 3, who knows what they're, just to keep you there, trying to keep you fed. So, you need to have enough food in you, but you don't really feel like eating.
Yeah.
The only time you get up out of the bed is to maybe go use the bathroom if somebody helps you or if you need to. It's really just a struggle being there. The days just, like you said, are long. If you can turn around and see the window, you might know if it's morning, day, or night. But Otherwise, you just see the lights in your room that go on and off. Nurses, doctors come in all hours of the day, so it doesn't really matter what time it is. You're going to see somebody coming in or out. I never was looking to give up or wanted to give up. I was just, I did everything the doctors told me to do to try to get myself better and try to carry on, but things just rapidly, progressively got worse over, I think it was about a week to 9 days or so from being in the hospital.
Right. And Megan, let me ask you, obviously you and the kids, you're going through something that's horrible, but Mike's other family, his parents, his siblings, things like that, you have to keep in touch with them, I'm sure, at times to reassure them that he's okay or what the doctors have told you. And that's hard to do too, because like a lot of questions are going to be asked and you're trying to just hold it together. How hard was that to try to, keep his family in the loop with everything? That couldn't have been couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was, because again, like all I did was, manage the kids and tried to, do everything I had to do at home, and speak with the doctors on the phone. A lot of what they said, especially in the beginning, was quick and short, and a lot of things I didn't understand. I'll be honest, there was a lot of accents that I had trouble understanding. So I, again, spent a lot of time in his MyChart, Google, just looking at tests and reading all the doctor's notes and Googling things. And then, yes, I would, as soon as I had news, I would call the family, sisters, my in-laws. We had friends who were reaching out to us, a lot of people asking questions, and let them know what I knew. A lot of people call me all the time, and I'd just be like, I'll call you.
Right.
But you can't say that, right? You have to answer the question. So I mean, it was just exhausting. I just feel like I didn't get any sleep, obviously, because I couldn't sleep without him there, and just thinking of what he was going through, wanting to text him all the time while he was still able to respond. It was just a lot. It was literally 24/7 of something.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure, like, no matter how many times you told the kids you can't see dad right now, things like that, that's not going to fly with kids at that age. Like, they want to see their father. So, I mean, I'm sure they had their moments too where they got very frustrated. I always remember this one time. I can remember Cora, and now Cora at the time is in first grade. And I remember, like, you had wanted the kids to call you right when they got out of school. And I could sense that Cora had like a worry on her face. So Cora, being 6 years old, even though she was little, she knew enough to know, like, this could be bad news. So, I mean, that's hard to watch your kids go through that, because you're going through stuff, but you love them so much and you see them, what they're going through. That had to be heartbreaking as well.
Yeah, I mean, you want to do everything you can to protect them, but in a situation like this, I felt like I had to be honest to a point of their kind of age level. But, there was, like, Mike could have died. Like, there was many times where he did. I mean, it was...
They knew I wasn't home.
Yeah, I mean, so I just tried to distract them, and unfortunately that was hard to do when you can't leave the house. But, we went out and played in the snow, and lots of games, and I don't even, I almost don't even remember. I just tried to keep them alive.
Now, when was the first time they said, okay, you could come see him? Was it like February, somewhere around there?
It was, it was 9 weeks. So it was February 9th, I want to say.
And now you weren't local either in the hospital, correct? Weren't you, like, in New York at times too?
No, so I was in the hospital at this point. To touch back, after like the first week, things had gotten so bad that they had put me on a ventilator, put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And then, later on after that, so that was really the last time Megan or anybody in the family saw me, spoke with me on my phone or anything else. And then Right, she came to see me in mid-February.
Yeah, so he started
that
at
point.
Bridgeport,
And that was at Bridgeport.
and had all the different oxygens, and then they had to trach him, or I'm sorry, put him on a ventilator. So obviously doing that, they had to sedate him. And then a few days after that, he was transferred to Yale to be put on an ECMO machine because the ventilator wasn't sufficient in managing his needs.
So at that point, you were like in an induced coma, correct?
Yeah,
So
induced coma or paralyzed. And
right. So Megan, let me ask you. I mean, all you could really do when you went to see him is just hope that even though he was sedated, he could hear what you were saying. I mean, was there a lot of times where like you were offering encouraging words to him while you talked to him?
Yeah.
Things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I couldn't see him for that long, and I just remember them, you know, they said they had the iPads and they were going to try to connect, but it just never worked. And I didn't want to take the nurses away from his care. That was my primary,
Right.
you know, thought. But I remember I did have one nurse who used, you know, who called me from her own cell phone just to show me, like, he's still here, you know,
Yeah.
because I hadn't, all this is going on. You see the news, you see the videos of COVID and everything happening, and you have heard all this stuff going on with your husband, and that just meant so much for me. So when I was finally able to go visit, they had time restraints and everything, but I just, you know, went and I just literally held his hand and talked to him. And I remember, you know, a few weeks later putting together a playlist on a recorder, like a speaker,
Yeah.
and putting you know, conversations with the kids, and the kids talking to him, and family and friends and songs, and you know, and I brought it, and they would put it up on his, you know, up on his neck, on his shoulder, and I'd be like, are you playing the the record, just so he, you know, who knows what you're like in that state. I've never experienced it, but
Right.
just to, if anything, let him know that he's not alone, or not make him think he's there, or drown out those beeping, and just, you know, and try to do anything I could to hopefully make it better.
Right. And Mike, let me ask you, how long would you say they had you in the induced coma? It was quite a while, correct?
Yeah, it was quite a while. You know, looking back at doctor's notes, there's a ton of stuff there that I've learned about. I went through a lot. Thankfully, I was in induced coma because
It would have been worse.
you
Yeah.
couldn't survive it if you were alive. So they put me in induced coma prior to Christmas of 2021. I really don't remember anything at all till around the point of May.
Right.
When I remember seeing a balloon in my room. It was around the point of my oldest daughter's birthday.
Right.
So it was a good 4 to 5 months, and you know, times in between that, looking back at doctor's notes, I was awake, responding, but how much awake and responding is that? You know, me, it was zero. I don't remember anything,
Right.
or hearing anything, or
Right. And I mean, Megan, I mean, did the kids ever ask you questions like, is he gonna, you know, die? I mean, did they ever think that that was a possibility? I mean, like, I could see Madison, because she was always, you know, even at a young age, just so intelligent. I could definitely see where, like, it wouldn't shock me if she looked this up, even though she was young. I mean, did they ever, like, did they need reassurance a lot of
They
times from
did.
you?
Yeah, I mean, they asked. And, you know, I never came out directly and said that he could, even with all the everything that was happening. You know, it wasn't just in a coma on a ventilator on an ECMO machine. He was having bleeds and infections and tons of things, dozens of things, if not more.
if it could happen, it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's such a hard position to be in as a mom, as the only parent there, because the reality is these doctors were giving him a 20% chance, and then something would happen, and it would be a 5% chance. At one point, gave him like a 1% chance. So I never came out directly and told them that, but you know, I would say, Daddy's really sick, but you know, he's in the place that he needs to be to get, you know, to hopefully get better.
You know, Megan, this is like a difficult question to ask, but I have to believe, like, this went through your mind as well. I mean, was there ever a time, just like when you left after seeing him, or you're driving in the car, like, was there ever a part of you that said, he's not going to make it? Like, I mean, because you're seeing all this, you're listening to the doctors. I mean, I know you probably didn't want to think that, but I'm sure at times, like, like anything else, you just felt like this outlook isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, there was never a point where I said that he wasn't going to make it, but there were points where I said, if he's not going to make it, or if that's the plan, or whatever it may be, just let him go. Because it was so much that he was going through that it just wasn't fair. I just didn't think it was fair to him. There was a point where he had an internal hemorrhage, and they had to cut his stomach open 12 inches to fix him. And thankfully they did. And I remember at that point, like, the director of the CT ICU where he was like, well, he's not giving up, so we're not giving up. And that gave me reassurance, and he ended up really being one of my rocks.
And I really think that's important too, because one of the things that sometimes I think doctors are guilty of is their bedside manner. Mm-hmm. It's not always good. And when you have somebody that's giving you a good bedside manner like that, though it's not going to make you feel completely better, at least, like, they gave you some hope and didn't just say, you know what, it's hopeless. Like, they said, he's not giving up, so we're not giving up. That had to make you at least leave that day, with a little smile on your face.
It did, because when he first got into the CTICU on this ECMO machine, which is basically life support for your lungs, I kind of asked, like, what's the plan? Like, how long? Like, just, I didn't know anything about it. And they had told me they usually give patients 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
So that was hard to take.
Yeah.
So that was literally me counting down weeks at that point. And so again, that bleed happened, and the director kind of said what I said. And so again, he kind of became my rock, and he really became the one that I went to. I was there. I quit my job. I was, once I could visit the hospital and the kids were back in school, I put them on the bus, and I would go to the hospital, and I would spend the entire day there until I had to leave to get them. I was watching everything they did. I was still checking all the notes, and, being completely fair to myself and giving myself a pat on the back, I began to know what drugs worked for him as far as sedation, like what I researched everything, and, I would tell him, and you know what, he would listen. Right. And certain nurses would listen, but it was, that was reassuring, because as we got further into the months and as he started to wake up and move, okay, he made it through this. Now it's go time. Like, now we need to get him awake and better and do what we need to do. So, it was a positive experience when I was able to almost play a role in his care, in his,
Right. And I think the good thing that you did as well, Megan, is as far as the kids go, you kept them doing the things they like. Madison was playing soccer in the spring. I think she did Girl Scouts as well, if I remember. Yep. And, the same thing with Cora and Owen. Like, you made sure that they were doing things with other kids. You didn't keep them isolated. So, I mean, I think that's a credit to you as well, is you're dealing with all the things that are going on with Mike, but yet you knew that, guess what? I'm still a mother. I still have to be a parent to these kids. Mm-hmm. And you never lost sight of that, which I think is really remarkable about you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I had to. I'm sure anybody would. You want to distract them in a positive way, with especially things they enjoy from what's going on. And I had a great friend base. I have a close-knit group of friends who were there for me. They, on Mother's Day, took time out of their day to come bring me presents, and they were always there for when I need to vent. And our children are all of the same age, basically. And
the community as well. Like, a lot of people, absolutely. Like, really, like, I remember the GoFundMe pages and stuff that everybody was sharing it.
We had a meal train
yeah,
set
everything.
up for us.
Like,
my
you know,
sister-in-law,
and
yeah.
you see that, and that's what like the world should be. It should be about like helping each other and, you know, being friends and things like that. And when people come together and they're supportive and things like that, it just gives you hope that, like, you know, it is still, like, there are still great people out there. And you saw that with everything he was going through.
Yeah. I mean, you were a great support. You know, yeah, friends, family. And you know what? I'll be completely honest. You know, you learn who your true friends are.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you needed to bring me a meal or anything like that, or take my children so I can go to the hospital. But, you know, you learn, you know, some people wanted to go see Mike, which was great, and a lot. And that doesn't, you know, it was a lot.
Right.
It was a learning experience in many ways.
Right. And Mike, I remember, you know, May would make sense when they woke you up, because I do remember the Memorial Day parade. I had run into Megan, and she was FaceTiming you, and she had had me say hello to you and things like that. So let me ask you, when you first woke up, like around May after being out all that time, I mean, how did you feel? I mean, obviously you were still weak and things like that, but I mean, did you feel like maybe there was a good chance you could beat this back then?
So it's after being put in a coma, induced coma, it's a slow wake up process, especially after that long. The amount of drugs you're on to keep you paralyzed or in a coma. It's a matter of, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Where am I?
You got to process all that. Where am I? I don't recognize this room I'm now in.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for me, I remember kind of everything up until the day where they put me in a coma. I didn't lose any memory, so to speak, prior to that. The whole time when I was in a coma, I don't remember. But waking up, it's a slow process. I don't know if it's days or a week later. At one point, you realize, hey, I think I'm talking, but I'm not talking. There's
Right.
no noise coming out. I can hear other people. I can't move my arm. I can't move my hand. I can barely squeeze my hands. I can't hold anything. How am I going to sit up and walk? Physical therapy team and occupational therapy come in the room. Okay, we're going to sit you up in the bed, or we're going to get you standing. No, you're not. I'm laying here.
Right.
I can't move on my own
Right.
at all. Like zero muscle strength. And it's just, you know, the people, the team, they help you move. They do what they need to do, and eventually encourage you to sit up on the side of the bed, or encourage you to stand up. You know, at one point, they got me up and I was walking around the ICU, still connected to the, you know, advanced life support ECMO machine. And I think that was, at that point, that was
June.
June.
End of June.
Towards the end of June.
Right. And one thing that happened in June that I'm sure, you know, for that day, everybody smiled, is you finally got to see your children. I believe they came on Father's Day, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just talk about that, because, Mike, I was thinking about this as well. While you're going through all this, even though you can't really talk, you're having trouble moving, I think the thing that probably depressed you the most was the fact that you missed like 8 months of their lives.
Right.
You know, you have a 8-year-old, a 6-year or a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. That could not have been a good feeling either. Like, you know, they're your kids, and to have to miss all that had to break your heart. You know, so you're going through the physical part of this and the emotional part. So, I mean, just seeing them that day, even though like you were still struggling, had to make you smile as well.
Right. So, yeah, you wake up, you have to kind of realize all of this and what's going on. And, you know, I could slowly talk to them, or recognize that Megan was in there visiting me in the hospital, come see me, show me pictures of the kids. You know, possibly if somebody was watching the kids at home, she could FaceTime, show me them for a little bit, or eventually I think nurses would help me answer my phone or set it up next to me so I could talk to some family for a little bit, you know, even a couple minutes at a time. It wasn't so much talking, it was me listening to them, you know, kind of nodding my head slightly, you know, and then eventually get to the point where you realize, hey, I'm not with these people. These are, you know, my family, my kids. I need to see them. And then, you know, luckily Megan was able to work with a couple people at the hospital and get the kids permission to come see me in the ICU, which was pretty restricted. They're young kids. I'm on life support at the time. I have IVs and everything else that you could imagine, with me bedside. So it was not an area that you really want to bring a lot of kids in, but being their father,
they're not
and
allowed in
they're not
under
really
18.
allowed there, and just come in. It was a great day to see them, and finally be able to see them. Very emotional, and
Right.
realized how much time had spent since the first time I could see them in person in over 6 months at that point.
Right.
6.5 months, or actually in person, yeah, it was more than that.
So let me ask you both. When did the doctors decide that he was going to need a lung transplant? And I know he needed a liver one as well, but he had to get a double lung transplant, if I'm not mistaken. When was that decision made that this was what they needed to do?
So I think there were some chats about how my lungs were progressing, if they were getting better after all this time or not.
The goal was
the X-rays.
to have them get better,
Right.
So transplant is really your last
Last
option.
option.
So they, especially with him waking up and everything, wanted to give it more time to see if we can get the lungs better, but they didn't.
Right, see if they could get better over time, or
So you kind of knew in June that this was going to be what they needed to do. Like you had an idea, I would say.
I think at that point they
It's
were
a
actually,
discussion.
it was a discussion, but everything was, well, we've one more thing, right? So when he was on the ventilator, well, we have an ECMO machine that we can put him on. And then, when his lungs aren't getting better, well, we can talk about a transplant. So it was mentioned, but I don't think that was, the goal at that point. When did go ahead.
But I think it was at that point, the doctors had seen me make it through a whole lot of stuff at that point. They were hoping I would get better, at least to keep my lungs for a while, get moving, get stronger, because at that point I was not mobile at all, see what I could do. It's kind of a last-ditch effort. Transplant in the end is not a cure. It's more like it's a Band-Aid and a continued monitor and fix and doctor's visits and
Right.
everything else. It's another long-haul medicine type of deal. So at one point, a doctor of the lung transplant program at NYU Langone came up to visit me while I was at Yale, still on the ECMO machine, and saw me, talked to me for a little bit. Was there for an hour or two. I don't really remember exactly how long. Kind of worked with the doctors to get me a plan to hopefully keep my lungs and get me off of life support and see kind of what would happen from there. So after that, we knew that was a plan B, but kind of tabled the option for that moment and,
Right.
tried to put the plan in place to get me off of life support.
And I don't pretend to be an expert on lung transplants, but I know on a heart transplant, in a kidney transplant, you have to be ready when that call goes off. I mean, was it the same thing? Did you have to be on a waiting list for a lung transplant? I mean,
So from that conversation, they were able to get me off of the ECMO machine, life support, get me on regular oxygen, still needed a lot. Was able to actually transfer me out of Yale, brought me up to Gaylord Rehab Hospital. I wasn't getting much rehab at the time, little bit a day, walked down the hallway a little bit. Things still weren't great.
40 feet.
40, 50 feet, not much at all. One time out of the bed a day, you sit in the chair for a little bit. Still eating.
And he
but
had you had a feeding tube, but he had lost 100 pounds. He had lost all of his muscle, so it was.
But I was able to, at that point, start to move your body, move my legs, move my arms, not walk with some help, and then still had some lung problems, X-rays, CAT scans, and found out that one of my lungs was, again collapsing and really bad. So they, planned to get me down there with the transplant program.
right. And Megan, I can recall this day. There's certain things that stick out in your mind, and I had mentioned this earlier. You had asked Madison to call you when she got out of school, and I had mentioned that story about Cora, and you could see it on Cora's face. But the one thing I remember while they were talking to you is I heard Madison say he's going to get to come home then, and when I heard her say that, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, maybe this got to be good news, So, I mean, when they told you that he was going to be able to get the lung transplant, and you knew, listen, he's got to get the surgery, all this stuff done. But I mean, was there a part of you that day that had relief, like, okay, we're one step closer?
Yeah, because it was so many months of unknown, and well, we're gonna wait to see if he gets better, once he's woke up and everything. So it was almost the best day in the whole process, because we knew that was what the plan was going to be. There was no more waiting. There was no more another day to see if he gets better. There's no another day to have him, hooked up to this high flow oxygen. It was, okay, he needs a lung transplant. So yeah, he got airlifted, took a nice helicopter ride down to New York City, and went through a whole bunch of testing, fast track testing, because you need to be approved and basically pass a bunch of tests.
Head to toe examinations, all the things you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, just crazy. And yeah, so I remember telling the kids, well, Dad's moving to his fourth place in however many months, and
9 months.
Yeah, and and again, it was just a good day, because even though we didn't know how long it would be until the transplant happened, right? Because you have to match a donor and everything. It was a good day because we finally had an actual plan,
Right.
like a definite plan.
Right.
And then to circle back on your other question, right? So I was down there at NYU going through all the testing and things of that nature for the testing, and planning to get me on the list, like I said, for all the transplants for organ donation and things of that, with the matching and everything else that goes on. So they put me on the list. I didn't have to wait for a call or anything because I was stuck in the hospital. So it was, they put me on the list, and then within a couple days, they actually came in that morning and told me I was going to have a surgery later that evening,
Right.
or that night.
And I think about this, and it's both of you, which is probably why, you two were the perfect match for each other, is I think you both learned a lot about yourselves through all this process. Like, Megan, if you broke down, I mean, clearly you did it in your private moments, you never stopped being a good person. You never stopped being nice to people, even through all this, where you were probably at times just wanted to shut down from the world. You kept it together through the whole thing, and most importantly, those kids, keeping them assured and being there for them. And then Mike, I mean, listen, most people may not, when doctors are giving them such terrible outlooks, I mean, it's easy to give up, but you didn't give up. I mean, we're going to get to this in a second, but there were some setbacks after this lung transplant. It wasn't just, he got it, he went home, and, we lived happily ever after. I mean, there were some setbacks, so I'm sure you both learned so much about the strength that both of you have as, people.
Right, yeah, definitely. I mean, leading up to that time, I knew that was the only option or solution that would give me the possibility of leaving the hospital, going back to see my family most of all. And, that time I was realizing all the hard work Megan was doing at home, and, dedication she was putting forth towards the kids who are coming to see me. And as time's going on, it's definitely, shown all the hard effort she's put in in our family.
I mean, the thing is, people say, I don't know how you did it. You touched kind of on that, but you have no choice.
Right.
I mean, you would do it too. Anybody would do it too. There's just no choice. You just do it.
Right.
So I think,
You can either give up or do 100%
there's no choice. And so I think maybe, what's it been, 3 years later, I think now maybe I can look back and look forward through those 3 years, during that year and up till now, of the things that we've accomplished, and maybe give myself a little credit now. But who wouldn't do that for the one they love and their family? I mean, it's
right. I think though what I mean is just the fact that you stayed who you were through the whole process. You know, I mean, I never saw any anger. You never showed any anger at all. When there was times you could have. I mean, that was such a terrible thing to go through, and I just think it shows that you both have that attitude that we'll do it together and we'll get through it. And I think that's ultimately why you left the hospital and, why you're here today. I really do.
Oh, thanks, Neach.
So let me ask you this, Mike. You're finally home. I mean, again, like it's an adjustment. And that's one thing, too. I want to really praise these children because I can remember when they were getting dropped off at school. They knew they had to be very careful, like how they sat in the car. Like he had that machine in the back, whatever it was, I remember. And like they almost reminded me of adults at that moment. They were kids, but in serious times like this, they knew they had to, not that they knew it, consciously, but they knew they had to kind of act like adults in a situation like this. And they were very careful with that. They didn't do anything to like, anything that would cause him to have a setback. And I really think that they should be applauded because they really did a great job through this whole thing.
They did. They really did. Like, I don't know, you can speak, but I just, watching them and the strength that they have, that they don't know they have, having to go through this, who goes through this?
Yeah.
All of their schoolmates and, even now, they want to have play dates, which is great, but, we need to check in to make sure everyone's been healthy and, and they know that. They just know what it takes to keep their dad here healthy. And
Yeah, kids are going to be kids, but they try to, they're consciously aware of trying to minimize, accumulating more germs than they normally might.
But not only that, if
whatever
dad's
it is.
sleeping and taking a nap, is dad okay? They're great, especially Maddie. She went through it.
Yeah.
Cora, I think she went through it as well, but that's also her personality. So, we do really need to give them a lot of credit.
I mean, they
It's
really
not
did.
something-
They really were remarkable through it all. And I mentioned setbacks. I mean, I think you were home for maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month, and you had to go right back. There was
No, less than a week,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Right. So,
And you also, if I am not mistaken, had to have like a hernia operation at one point as well, right? So, I mean, that's a lot to deal with too when you're getting cut open all the time. I mean, that's not fun either. But through it all, you were willing to do whatever it took to keep you home and keep you with your family. But just talk about the setbacks. Did you ever get down, or did you just say, you know what, okay, this is what's going on, let's do it, let's get it fixed, let's get me back home?
yeah, like you said, it was kind of I've always had a positive attitude towards everything. It was, got a setback. I had a terrible setback after the transplant surgery. Had an infection they had to deal with. Saved my life once more. And then I was able to get into rehab in the hospital, eventually bring me home. I think it was home for, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks, 5 days. I have to look back to see exactly what it is. And, normal a regular checkup that I was going back for every 2-3 days. I had another blood issue. I was really tired, and then they had to readmit me to the hospital, give me some more blood, and check everything out again. And then I was released again day before Thanksgiving. It happened to be. I remember that. And then setbacks, daily medicines all the time to keep me alive and not reject other organs. I had one issue where I had to go in the hospital for, I think it was a week, because I had some sort of abdominal blockage. I've been opened 3, 4, 5, 6 times, I don't know. And then, at some point after that, I had to go back, like I said, for another hernia surgery, which was supposed to be a small surgery, in and out. We'll keep you overnight just to monitor you. And the doctor turns out they had to open up my abdomen again and kept me for another
easy.
5 or 6 days. But through that, I've maintained a positive attitude, just something more I have to do so that I can live, be home with my kids, my wife, and just kind of enjoy what I can from life. Be alive and
and the thing is too, Mike, is when you got home, that was really where more of the work had to come in. Like you had to get your strength back, you had to put on weight, all those things. And I look at you now, you look the same to me like you did before this happened. And then, but there were times, like you had lost a great deal of weight, but you fought through it. I mean, it seemed like every curveball that came at you, you hit it out of the park. And I think for me, I would always see you with Megan and the kids, but you were always in the car. So like you were always going to an appointment. So I didn't really know, like, is he back? Like, is he okay? You know, I didn't really know for sure. But I think what really was a turning point was the school had their end of the year celebration. And when I saw you walk in, I don't think Megan was there that day. I think you walked in with Cora and Madison. And that's the thing that's even more amazing is you weren't just home. You were driving again. You're taking your kids to soccer, to Girl Scouts, to gymnastics, basketball. So, I mean, like, you didn't just bounce back. You went back to being what you were before this happened. And, I mean, that didn't happen alone. I mean, that's, you know, that Rocky speech, which is great. It's not how many times you get a hit. It's about how many times you could get hit and keep getting back up, where the winning comes from. And that really is, you know, I know they always say Superman, and you are, but, you know, you got a little Rocky in you, too. And, I mean, that really is a credit to how you wanted to be home with your family.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mike. That means a lot. It's yeah, you just got to keep pressing forward and do what you have to do. You have 3 young kids, wife at home, have to participate in life, to the best of my ability, and get out there and still do the things that my kids need for me as well at the same point.
Right. And Megan, I think once he got home, it's easy to just say, okay, he's home, I'm going to relax now, stuff like that. But you've really been an advocate for blood, donating blood, and the importance of how blood saves lives, blood donations, things like that. And I think you work with the Red Cross now, correct?
I do. Yeah, when he was in the hospital, so throughout his year stay, he needed over, 180 blood transfusions?
170 or something, right.
Something crazy. And I just, in the hospital, I remember him needing so much blood. And at that time, it's like, what can I do besides come to the, put the kids on the bus, come to the hospital, manage things here, go home. Like, I just felt helpless. And so I was like, I'll reach out to the Red Cross and see if I can host a blood drive. So we did, and it was successful, and we've had one ever since. And I ended up luckily getting a job as an account manager in donor recruitment, because a lot of people don't. I feel like a lot of people don't understand the need for blood until it affects them personally. I can vouch for that. We used to donate blood, but never, thinking,
Never
perfect.
imagine you'll receive it.
Yeah. So I love going into my high schools and teaching kids and just, again, helping people understand that car accidents need blood. Nobody expects to be in a car accident. Nobody expects their 38-year-old husband to get COVID and be in the hospital for a year. Nobody expects to get cancer. So it's, I love it, and it's important. And, we're both on the board for Donate Life Connecticut, advocating for organ transplant. Without that blood and without, organ donation, he wouldn't be here. And that's, to the help of all of his doctors and nurses and him fighting. Without those two things, getting to that, he wouldn't be here. So.
And I really think that's a great job, because it's very important. I mean, it does save lives, and I mean, the fact that, like I said, you're advocating for it and you're out there spreading the word and doing whatever you can is really helpful to so many people, and it makes them kind of understand just how important it is to donate blood.
Yeah, and we've met so many people through the blood donation and the organ donation, and it's a in my mind, in our mind, I think it's a great cause. And there's so many stories that we've come across and people we've come across that you would never know or think or hear about, but actually are similar to ours. So it's a great community, and I enjoy it.
Right. So Mike, tell me how life is right now in 2026. I mean, it seems like to me, you're, like I said, I just mentioned, you're doing everything that you did with your kids before you got sick. They have their dad back. They've had him back for 3 years now.
Right.
So talk to me, how is life in 2026 for Mike Serke?
Life is good. It's I still maintain positive attitude about it. A lot of limitations on some things I can do, and just some of it's just from the physical nature of laying in the bed for a year. You get a lot of joints that hurt, you build muscle, so a lot of activities. I'm not running around per se on the soccer field like I would have prior to getting sick with my kids, but still involved with them. Go pass the ball in the driveway, shoot some hoops a little bit, go on a walk with them, take them for their ride on their bike. Just kind of doing what the average person can do out there.
Right. And let me ask you this, Mike, before we go. What message, advice, whatever it might be, would you say to somebody who, not just somebody who's going through whatever sickness it might be, but their family who has to go through it as well? What message or advice would you give to them? What would you say to them, to deal with something that is, very hard to go through?
From my perspective, it's just, kind of maintain a positive attitude. It might be hard to listen to somebody who's on the outside, a doctor, a nurse, or, maybe even just your wife who's not experiencing the same thing as you are, just to take a step back and listen to what somebody's telling you and, try to still get yourself in the best possible situation for the best outcome and, move forward. Try not to think about the bad things, although you have to, but you really have to maintain a positive attitude if you want a positive outlook, or even just, if you have a sick friend or something else like that. Just something simple as reach out, hey, how are you doing today? Can I bring you a coffee? What might you need? Or, I'll touch base with you tomorrow just to check in and say hi, see how you are. Just give somebody else a chance to talk to you, or, just maintain a positive attitude, pass along kindness and strength.
Well, that's a great attitude. I really do thank you both for coming on today. But Mike, I really do applaud you for everything that you've done these last 4 years, because I said this, the other day, you went to hell and back several times, but you're back and you really are everything that a person should be. Terrific husband, wonderful father, and I'm just very happy for you and your family that in 2026, like I said, that you're together again. But I really, like I said, applaud you for just being so courageous through all of this to get yourself back to them. And I thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Mike, for all the kind words, having me here, allow us to share the story a little bit, and share some positivity out there.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you, Meg. Well, there you have it, folks. I want to start first with Madison, Cora, and Owen Serke. They were 3 young kids whose lives were very altered because of events they never would have expected. They just went about their day every day, went to school, went to soccer, went to basketball, whatever it might be. And they kind of had to grow up a little sooner than most kids do. But through it all, they were a strength that their mother needed, and they also had that strength for their father. They never lost sight of what they wanted. They wanted their dad home. They did everything that they needed to do to get him home. They were cooperative. They did everything their mother asked them to do. And that should never be forgotten, because part of the reason Mike made it home is because of those 3 children and the courage they had to get through with what he and his wife Megan had to get through. And then you have Megan Serke. It's funny, that old saying in the wedding vows, sickness and in health, you hear it all the time, but I don't think anybody really pays attention to it when it's happening. But she really embodied that, because she stuck by her husband through the entire process, never got down, never gave up, was always encouraging to him, got him through some of the most unbelievable ordeals of his life. And she stayed with him through the entire thing, going to the hospital each and every day, gave him a positive attitude that he needed. And that should never be forgotten, because her courage, her resolve, and her determination to get him home is a big reason why he's home. And she really is everything that a wife and a mother should be. And now, Michael Serke. what could we say? I mean, this poor guy, you know, around Christmas time of all times, gets this horrible news. He goes through so many ordeals and tough situations, but yet through it all, he never gave up. There was a basketball coach once who I really admired. His name was Jim Valvano. He was stricken with terminal cancer, and through it all, he always had the same message. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Michael Serke never gave up one time. He got through this. Obviously, he got the lung transplant. We all know that. But he really got through this because he refused to give up. He wanted to be home to his wife, to his 3 children, and he wasn't going to let anything stop him. You know, they talk about Superman, but Superman's a movie. Superman in real life is Michael Serke, and we should never forget that. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.